this is the single greatest college football championship we've ever seen. Yes, it is the first 12-team playoff, but that does not at all limit what Ohio State has accomplished, the accolades that Ohio State should collect here. When you look at the road that they took, Tennessee, Oregon, two of the most difficult teams to face. Then you go on to beat Texas, who was a lot of people's picks to win the national championship. Then you go on to beat a outmanned, undersized Notre Dame team. It even hurts me to say that out loud, but the bottom line is that is four of the best wins back to back to back that we have ever seen. I don't think that you can knock down. I don't think that you can slight. There is not enough praise that you can heap on the reclamation project and the job that Ohio State football coach Ryan Day did, bringing his Ohio State Buckeyes back to some sort of ability to emotionally compete after losing to Michigan, seemingly seeing all of their hopes dashed. Instead, they regrouped. They fought hard. They came together as a team, and they won four of the most difficult games any college football team has had to endure to win the national championship. Jake, I think this was a virtuoso performance by Ryan Day.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that this started, before the season even kicked off. The recruiting efforts, getting the talent that you got to finish off the roster, the development that you were able to pull from these players, on the defensive side of the football that have been there several years. I think that's where this national championship started. You built a roster that was mostly, recruited and developed by you, and then you finished that roster off by adding several key pieces that wind up making huge contributions throughout this playoff run. And so, yeah, I think Ryan Day and Chip Kelly and company deserve a ton of credit for what they were able to do. But I also think we learned a lot from this Ohio State performance. I don't think we're any longer in an era in college football where you can afford as a big time, Power 4 program that wants to compete for national championships. You can't afford to have a quarterback that cannot pass the football at pretty much an NFL level, because that's what I saw throughout this playoff. The quarterbacks that can throw the ball and are going to play on Sundays had a ton of success through this playoff. Now, obviously, Quinn Ewers doesn't get to the national championship game. They, obviously they lost to Ohio State, but you look around the teams that made it to the college football playoff, and they pretty much all share that in common. They have a passing quarterback, and the ones who had the most success had guys who are elite at that position passing the football. And the ones who didn't obviously had quarterbacks that ran a lot more, which limits you as an offense. So for me, I just think that Ryan Day identified what he needed, what the path was to win a national championship. And then they went out and executed that. Recruiting, play calling, on-field execution, leadership. I just think that the people today who are hating on Ohio State or not giving Ohio State the credit that they deserve are exactly that. They're just haters, because anyone who looks at this performance, it's easy to say, hey, they just were the better team. And that is what they should be proud of.
I think also when we talk about Ohio State, I think all of the hate that was heaped on the transfer portal, NIL, collectives, Ohio State just showed you the blueprint to win a national championship. Go get the best available quarterback. They did that with Will Howard. Will Howard, and again, K-State fans, I'm not even trying to stir the pot. You didn't want Will Howard. Will Howard lost his job to Avery Johnson, which now seems laughable, but it happened. He's a cast-off who goes to Columbus and shows you not only is he one of the best passing quarterbacks in the country, he's an NFL prospect now because he went to a big program. He got paid to do so. He was surrounded with talent. He had an offensive coordinator that was recruited just as much as he was, because Chip Kelly was an incredible hire. He was backed up by great play calling. He was backed up by one of the best defenses in the country. That's the blueprint to win. You've got to have a quarterback who can stand in the pocket and deliver the football. You've got to have a very good defense, and you have got to have the ability to get in the portal and win the best performers. Not the biggest names, not the controversial figures. You've got to get in the portal and you've got to win the best performers available to your football team at your positions of weakness. And there is no doubt quarterback was a position of weakness for Ohio State until Will Howard showed up. And ultimately, in my opinion, Will Howard is one of the main reasons Ohio State football won the national championship. Again, I'm not even sure that that's arguable. When you look at Notre Dame versus Ohio State, what is the single biggest difference in that game? Well, quarterback, but I think the other part of this, you had a head coach who embraced the challenge in front of his football team. If it was ever more clear that Marcus Freeman is not ready to win at the highest level, it was going against Ryan Day. It was going against Chip Kelly, who I thought both kept their composure in this game. Ryan Day empowered Chip Kelly, who continued to call the right play at the right time. Notice the play that was huge in this game. You look at Jeremiah Smith, single coverage. You look at a zero blitz. Marcus Freeman calls a zero blitz with man coverage on Jeremiah Smith. And where did that football go? It went one-on-one to the boundary, which has been Notre Dame's biggest defensive weakness all season long. Jake, I think Ohio State outcoached Notre Dame. They out-physicaled Notre Dame.
Yeah.
They were more talented than Notre Dame. Ohio State was simply put, built to beat everybody else in college football. I think they laid out the blueprint.
Yeah, and I think when you listen to Marcus Freeman talk about the zero blitz play, you can hear the pain in his voice. You can hear him talking about like, hey, we're basically in between a rock and a hard place. We're in a spot where if we do one thing, they're going to beat us, and if we do another thing, they're also going to beat us. And I think that's what made it so difficult on him last night.
Yep, and here is Notre Dame head coach Marcus Freeman talking about that faithful zero blitz call.
Yeah, it was do or die. It was that type of down. If they run it, and they get a first down, we got to get them stopped. And we thought at that moment the best way to get them stopped is to run zero pressure. And you know what? Like, we have to have faith at some point that we can make a play. And there was times in the second half that we did in man coverage, but he's a heck of a player. He's difficult to cover. You want to play zone, and they'll find ways to pick you apart. You want to play man, they find ways to get him the ball. And so it's a talented offense. But that's that situation right there.
But that's who this Notre Dame team has been all year, right? They have been a man cover team.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where the strength of schedule, I think, comes back. That conversation about what's the right way to build your schedule and your roster. Notre Dame played man coverage all year long. All year long, their biggest plays against Notre Dame's defense were one-on-ones on the boundary. I mean, you watch a minute of Notre Dame football, that's their weakness. You're going to live and die on that. And I had people texting me last night saying, oh, you got to zone, you got to zone. They zoned for about 35 seconds in the second quarter, and what happened?
Mm-hmm.
Judkins breaks off a big run. You're throwing quick outs. Notre Dame had to live and die with who they are on a defense, and they're very good defensively. I think we saw that sometimes last night. The zero blitz is a terrible decision. Terrible decision. Be strong up front. I don't mind if you're going to bring Watts or Schuler down. You can't send 7 guys and have man coverage on the outside. In that situation, in my opinion, it's unforgivable. And I think you listen to Will Howard talk about his wide receivers. And again, I think it's hard to argue that Ohio State has the best wide receiver room in the country.
Coming into this season, I think something that Coach Day and Coach Kelly and Billy really emphasized to me was completions. Get completions, take completions. There was a couple times early where maybe I had to check it down, or maybe it wasn't, perfectly how it's drawn up, but you want to, just keep the ball moving, and stay on schedule. And it may not always be pretty. You may have to go pick it up with your legs. But I got to give all the credit to my guys, my O-line giving me time, and And those guys, the receivers, I mean, we got the best receiver room in the country, and it's not even close.
Yeah, and I think Will Howard is a very interesting talking point because I do want to get to Ryan Day's legacy. But before we have that conversation, let's talk about Will Howard and listen to Ryan Day talk about his quarterback.
I give this guy a lot of credit right here, Will Howard. I think he ran the ball 16 times in a game. We knew it was going to be that way. It was the last game we had, so we were going to let out all the bullets, and he really put the team on his back and obviously delivered a huge third down conversion, which sealed the game. But
it's tough, man. You look at Will Howard and you contrast and compare him to Riley Leonard. And you know that Notre Dame recruited Will Howard.
Yeah.
And I just say to myself, again, and I freely admit I'm a diehard Notre Dame fan. It pains me to think about the fact that Will Howard never considered going to Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
He only considered Ohio State. And I just ask, if it was Will Howard wearing a Golden Dome last night, does Notre Dame win that game? I don't know, but I think it's a hell of a lot closer than it was.
Yeah, I think the thing you got to consider with that, and this is the painful part, is Will Howard is a guy who was in a situation that's not unfamiliar in college football, right? A guy who had hopes of going to the NFL, was obviously aware of the fact that his time in production and what he had put on tape at K-State wasn't going to be good enough for him to get any reasonable draft slot in the NFL draft. I mean, even a third round pick at that point, I'm not sure was possible. And so he had to go somewhere that allowed him to climb in the draft and allowed him to be on ESPN every week and allowed him to be the centerpiece of something big. And I think that's the hard part when you talk about Notre Dame recruiting these big time players is like, for Will Howard, that you're talking about the difference between playing for a defensive minded head coach in Marcus Freeman versus an offensive minded head coach, in my opinion, in Ryan Day, and frankly, a witch of an offensive coordinator in Chip Kelly. So I just think that it's not just like the ability to recruit. It's the total opportunity that you're offering that I think Notre Dame fell short of when recruiting him.
Yeah, and then you have to ask yourself, what is Ryan Day's legacy at Ohio State? And I understand Ryan Day had been controversial, but that's all done now. Ryan Day won the national championship. He did it in spectacular style, as I mentioned before. I think it's the most difficult road any football team has ever had to traverse to win a national championship. All this talk about Ryan Day versus Pervin Liar, that's all done now. Ryan Day did it better than, in my opinion, any other coach in the country this year. That does not mean that Ryan Day is the best coach in the country, but let's get something straight. He's one of the best coaches to ever coach at Ohio State. And we can have these conversations about, hey, is this team better than Maurice Claret and Craig Krenzel, the 14-0 team? Is this team better than? No. Is it the greatest Ohio State team of all time? No. Is Ryan Day the greatest head coach at Ohio State? No, I think that's probably Pervin Liar. But you need to embrace Ryan Day as one of the elite coaches ever to do it at Ohio State. These conversations about can Ryan Day beat Michigan? Very valid. Ryan Day, I don't think he's ever going to beat Michigan. I think it's in his contract that he will be terminated instantly if he ever beats Michigan. I can't confirm that, but I'm pretty sure because he never beats Michigan. But let's get something straight. He just did something that no other Ohio State coach has done. He just did something that I don't think any other coach in the history of college football has done. He beat 4 of the best teams in the country to win a national championship. Ryan Day is now forever amongst the elites at Ohio State. This Ohio State football team, I think, is one of the top 3 teams in the history of Ohio State. Probably 2014. I would say 2002 with Claret and Krenzel is the best team that Ohio State's ever had. 2014 is probably second. Man, but 2024, 25, I think this is one of the best teams ever. I think Ryan Day is one of the best coaches ever at Ohio State. And Jake, frankly, I think he needs to be recognized among the elites of college football right now.
Yeah, and I think that the piece about bouncing back from adversity, I mean, that has to be spoken about today. Like you all jokes aside, right? Like 100% serious. You lost to Michigan in embarrassing fashion. Like you lost to a Michigan team, that was down, that was not good, that you clearly are better than. And you still lost that game to Michigan. And then you simply went to work. And I think that part of the season is where last night was kind of decided.
The stories coming out about the meetings and the conversations and the things that Ryan Day did and the things that Ryan Day said immediately following that Michigan loss are now the things of legend.
I mean, I think it was 11 in a row before last night that they had won to get there. So 12 in a row to end your season. The ability to get people to believe in the path and in the vision. And this is kind of my point about the Will Howard thing, right? Like you go and recruit a guy like Will Howard, who's got so much on the line in this final season of his college career. Like, what better way to go out and get the locker room in order after losing to Michigan than to lean on him? It's not a secret that Ryan Day has spoken all about it through the playoff, about how, Will Howard's led this team. Will Howard has, like last week we played a bite where Ryan Day said, Will Howard picked me up on bad days. I'm just telling you, they had the recipe for success. And this is one of those days where you have to say credit to Ryan Day, right? For all the days that we said, hey, you should be fired. For all the days that, hey, you're embarrassing the Ohio State program. Well, you came back, you came through, and he deserves a lot of credit for that.
Yeah. To go 4-0 against 4 top 10 ranked teams after losing to Michigan. And I think it is an oddity. Maybe it's some odd karma. Maybe it's just what's supposed to happen. Michigan played a significant role in the national championship for Ohio State. And it's just that rivalry thing. At some point, Ryan Day is going to have to beat Michigan.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter now, though. Does that Michigan loss really matter? Yes. If they don't lose that Michigan game, do they win the national championship? I don't know. I think it's really hard to say. What happens to you when you lose? And I don't know if you've never played or never been around major sports. When a team loses, we find out far more about their fabric. We find out far more about their belief systems, their core values, all the things that make football teams elite. And again, I know it to most people, it probably sounds like a bunch of hooey, but I'm telling you, core values, belief systems, confidence. The best football teams practice passing the football, but they also practice building confidence as much as they practice tackling, as much as they practice running and tackling and passing and catching. They practice confidence.
Yeah.
And I think we found out that Ohio State believed in itself. And now, like all the things that you want to heap on top of them, that Michigan loss showed us who Ohio State is and at the time was. And I think it's just I can't heap enough praise on Ohio State and Ryan Day today, because to do what they did after losing that game and the way they lost that game and the Jack Sawyer planting the flag, and I would have fired Ryan Day that night. Honest to goodness, if it was my decision, I'd have fired Ryan Day on the spot. And at this point, you can only say I would have been wrong for doing so, but you wouldn't have blamed me.
Yeah, I wouldn't have blamed you, but I also think we've had so many conversations on the show, and I still maintain this opinion. Like even when Ryan Day is losing, even when the bad days come through, he's still one of the best head coaches in college football. He's right. He's in the conversation of top 5 to 7 coaches. He's in that group, and yes, it's an opinionated conversation. There's a lot of different ways to look at it and evaluate it. I totally get that. But there's a certain separation now, right? Like, I mean, I think most of us, would agree that, before Saban retired, it was Kirby and Saban kind of sharing that mantle. And depending on the year, now Nick Saban's retired, obviously.
Sark's got to be there.
Sark's in the conversation, but I do think that there's this separation now. And Ryan Day has climbed a rung on the ladder. He's got a national championship now, and that matters. Getting the job done matters. So
Yeah.
I for me, Kirby's the best, coach in college football still. I then would probably have Ryan Day now that he's won a national championship, and then I would have Sark. And I think Marcus Freeman still has proving to do. I do.
Stop.
What?
Marcus Freeman is not one of the best coaches in college football.
That's not what I
Stop
said.
it.
I said he's
You
got
stop
proving
this.
to do.
You stop
Like,
this nonsense.
I didn't say he was one of the best
You
college
stop
foot
it.
coaches.
You apologize.
No.
Apologize.
No.
Apologize.
Nope.
Marcus, stop. Anyway, before I rip Marcus Freeman to shreds, I would like to, this Michigan thing, Ohio State fan, you need to embrace the fact that if you don't beat Michigan, you failed. There is this, and I understand it. You've just won the national championship. You have to beat Michigan. And at some point, if Ryan Day wants to ascend to the peaks of Ohio State football, next 5 years. I think if Ryan Day is ever to be known as a better coach than Pervin Liar, he will need to beat Michigan multiple seasons in a row, and he will need to win another national championship. And I think he's got to do that in the next 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
If let's put it this way, if Ryan Day beats Michigan the next 3 years and wins another natty, he's the greatest coach in the history of Ohio State football.
Yeah.
Simply because of the controversies that swirled around Pervin Liar when he was in Columbus.
Yeah.
I think that is, if Ryan Day wins 2 and then as a matter of routine beats Michigan year after year and wins another one, he's the best coach in the history of Ohio State football.
Yeah, I just don't know the confidence level that he's going to do that. I mean, you got to show me you can beat
I'm
Michigan.
not confident he will do that.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that. I don't
care where that game's played. I mean, you got to beat Michigan with consistency.
And let's see what happens with Michigan. Where does Sharon go from here? All of that stuff. But if Ryan Day wants to be the greatest football coach that's ever worked at Ohio State, you've got to win another one, and you've got to beat Michigan, and I think you have to do that in the next 3 years.
Yeah.
Because after that,
what kind of momentum do you build off of last night? Obviously you're national champions right now, and you got to build off of that in recruiting. You got to go out and begin again, and that process begins. What's today? Tuesday. Process probably begins tomorrow. Yeah, it is the sad reality of of who Ryan Day is. You just won a championship. Smoke the cigars, drink the champagne, do whatever you're going to do on Tuesday, because Wednesday you got to get back to work. That's the nature of college. You look at this this lawsuit with Wisco in Miami and transfer portal now. Notre Dame and Ohio State, their transfer portal opens now. Like, it just is what it is. Yeah.
It just is what it is. So we'll see. Ryan Day, a couple of numbers that should really stand out to you at the Ohio State. Do you guys understand that he is 70-10 as the head coach at Ohio State? 70-10. 46-5 in conference. Too many losses to Michigan. 70, and he is, I was looking at this number last night, and it's shocking to me.
Yeah.
70-10.
That's what I'm saying, man. Like, this is like,
God damn.
This is like what we do with LeBron, right? Like, LeBron is so good at basketball that we forget just how elite it is, generally speaking. Like, 70-10 is an absurd number.
Yeah. I am it's amazing to me.
Yeah.
What do we say about Notre Dame? Where did it go wrong for Notre Dame? They lost this game the minute that you decided it was okay to kick a field goal. You lost this game the minute you decided the right thing to do was to zero blitz. And as much growth and development as we saw from Marcus Freeman this season, Marcus Freeman made several critical mistakes last night. Kicking that field goal, which I would remind you he missed. You threw up the white flag. You said you didn't want to win the game because you're down 2 scores. You're down 16 points at that point. Kicking a field goal means, okay, let's assume you would have made it. You're down 13 points. What changed? Nothing. You're still 2 possessions down. And my point is, the only answer there was you got to score a touchdown. Ultimately, you missed the field goal. So had you gone for it on 4th and goal and not converted, you were in the same spot. Marcus Freeman zero blitzing with man coverage on the outside was a huge mistake in this game. And it changed the plot line of this game. It allowed Ohio State to burn Notre Dame timeouts. It allowed Ohio State to run the football, burn the clock, and kick a chip shot field goal that ultimately ended this game. Marcus Freeman has a lot of growing and learning to do. Now, here's the question that I have for every Notre Dame fan, such as and like myself. Is Marcus Freeman more Brian Kelly? Or is Marcus Freeman a different guy who's going to take this team to another level after this loss? Because Brian Kelly, the day that Manti Te'o's dead girlfriend, who never was, got blown out by Alabama, that's the day that Brian Kelly left for LSU. And by that, I mean, that's when his tenure at Notre Dame came to an end. Is that who Marcus Freeman is now? Does Marcus Freeman ever turn into somebody that recruits the best quarterback in the portal? Does Marcus Freeman ever turn into somebody that can pull in the biggest, best quarterback in the portal? Because again, I will sit here and I will tell you, Riley Leonard should have never been the starting quarterback at Notre Dame for one simple reason. He's not good enough. He's not good enough. And if we learned anything this weekend, it is Lamar Jackson's inability to throw the football down the field to win a playoff game. It is Riley Leonard's inability, or maybe it's a lack of belief, however you want to spin it. It is Riley Leonard's inability to consistently stand in the pocket and deliver the football. It's great that you were able to make a throw or two in this game, but you were not able to consistently stand in the pocket and deliver the football. And ultimately, it was the difference between winning and losing. And ultimately, Marcus Freeman's inexperience and inability to think under pressure that cost Notre Dame this game. And my question is, does Marcus Freeman ever win a national championship at Notre Dame? And I don't think with any certainty you can say he does.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's difficult to say with certainty whether he'll win a national championship or not. But I do think that, you know, to the Brian Kelly point, you know, I think Marcus Freeman is you know, driven at a really high level, and I think that I would agree he's developed a lot. I would also agree that he made a ton of mistakes last night. And he's got a lot of shortcomings still as a coach, and part of those shortcomings is one, your coaching staff. Right. I think you need a better OC, a more aggressive OC who you can use to go out and get after the best quarterbacks in the portal, because ultimately we've seen that model work time and time again. Hey, I might be a defensive minded head coach, but my offensive coordinator is one of the best in the country, and we're going to be trying to push the ball down the field. That's who we have to be to go out and win national championships. So to me, that blueprint really works. And I don't think that Marcus has to go somewhere else to get back to the national championship game and take another run at it. What he needs to do is improve the offensive side of the football, starting with your coaching staff. And then from there, he's got to do what Ryan Day did, which is put your pride aside, let Chip Kelly or your guy run the offense, and use that guy to go out and get a quarterback, because that's all that was last night. You know, it didn't, to me, look like Notre Dame was miles behind Ohio State in talent, let's say. Yes, Ohio State's talent is better than Notre Dame's, but you weren't like, miles behind. What it was is you didn't have a way to beat their defense. You couldn't do what anybody else before did.
Do you understand? Did you guys look at the numbers in this game? Do you understand the disparity that happened on the football field last night? And I think a lot of Notre Dame fans don't embrace this. Do you guys understand that Riley Leonard ran for 30 yards last night? If you'd have watched that game and if you'd have listened to Notre Dame fans, he ran for 100 yards and he threw for 300. And there are Notre Dame fans saying this is one of the greatest quarterback performances in the history of Notre Dame football. Do you guys understand that he accounted for 231 yards of offense last night? The quarterback. Do you understand in the biggest games, if you look at Penn State, Riley Leonard accounted for, and I'm just going to keep going back to this, 223 and 35. He accounted for 258 yards against Penn State, 230 yards against Indiana. If we just keep going back to this and you look at his game logs and you look at Ohio State, he throws for 255 and he rushes for 40, under 300 yards. Okay, what does that say about this offense? Here's the problem. Look at the team stats. Total rushing yards, 53 rushing yards for Notre Dame last night. 214 rushing yards for Ohio State last night.
Mm-hmm.
Did Notre Dame compete physically last night? Not up front, they didn't. Not when you give up 445 yards of offense. And we're celebrating last night as one of the great Notre Dame quarterback performances ever.
Yeah, I don't know who's saying that. I mean, obviously people are, but
lot.
Nobody who watches X's and O's football is sitting here saying that was some virtuoso performance.
He ran. Riley Leonard ran, and everybody last night, 100 yards run. He ran for 40 yards last night. That's why I go back to Indiana. I go back to Penn State. I look at Riley Leonard's performance. Was it gutsy? Yes. Did he throw up on the sidelines? All of a sudden vomiting on the sideline? Who are you, Cam Scattaboo? All of a sudden vomiting on the sideline is some badge of honor. Vomiting on the sideline is some badge of honor. No, it's not. No, it is not. He didn't run for 100 yards last night. He ran for 40. He averaged 2.4 yards a carry. Do you understand last night that Ohio State ran for 5.2 yards a carry? Do you understand that on 41 carries, 41 rushes, they averaged 5.2 yards a carry?
Right,
where did it go wrong? You got your ass kicked up front. That's where it went wrong.
Yeah, I think that, I agree with that. I think Ohio State's successes on offense, obviously, are not, are not a reflection of Riley Leonard, but I think Ohio State's successes on offense are a reflection of Notre Dame just doesn't have a good enough offense. I'm tired of hearing about Greathouse. I'm tired of hearing about these average ass guys you got in the wide receiver room, like ESPN yesterday in the pregame, talking about how Greathouse is this awesome wide receiver and just an incredible. No, he's not. Like he would be a
third
nice
receiver.
Slot guy.
He'd be a third receiver on the best teams in the country.
Yeah.
Is he a good receiver? Yes. Where did his big play come from? His big play came from a slot fade.
Yeah.
Right? That's their route. And I'm not telling you that Riley Leonard played poorly last night. He accounted for 3 scores.
I just don't think he was I accounted for 3 scores. Did he
2 passes and 1 rush.
But was he the reason that you won or lost the game?
No.
As usual, he was not. The reason, in my opinion, that you lost this game is your inability to effectively play a different style of defense than you have the whole year. I'm all good with, hey, we're a man coverage team. I'm cool with that. Yes, you are. You want to win a national championship? I got news for you. You can't just play man coverage.
No.
Can't just play man coverage all night. And so what happens is your defense got exposed last night, in my opinion. Your defensive play calling got exposed last night, in my opinion, because there were multiple times where I was like, what the hell is this? Why are we going small in terms of size on the field in this situation or that situation? You tried to do things you're uncomfortable with last night, and it came back to get you. And the poster child example of that is the Jeremiah Smith zero blitz, right? I mean, that's what everyone wants to point to. But I point to what led up to that, which was, hey, you were not making adjustments until the second quarter, which I was shocked by because they moved the football on you just fine with their first couple of possessions. So at some point when we talk about Notre Dame, it can't just be this sweetheart story of a kid who came from Duke and, oh,
You
my,
suck.
he's a great, my mom texts me every day saying I suck. I got news for you. You do suck. You're not a great passer. You're not good enough in the national championship game.
Yeah.
And ultimately, Notre Dame's shortcomings were exposed, which we find every year in the national championship game, by the way. This is not unique to Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Every single year, the loser of the national championship game gets their weaknesses exposed. So when you ask me, hey, is Marcus Freeman the guy that's going to leave for LSU in a sense, or is he going to stay and get better? I think he will stay and get better. That's who he's been, right? From why is he the coach now? Because he stayed and he got better. So I think he will. But ultimately, this Notre Dame program has to get on board with the idea that it's not good enough to have a running quarterback, have a second, essentially running back trying to lead your team. That's not good enough anymore, man. And at some point, they're going to get on board with that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if people realize Notre Dame hasn't won a national championship since 1988, which seems like a lifetime ago. Marcus Freeman, this is a guy who said Notre Dame's not going into the portal for a quarterback. I don't know. I don't know what other example of a team that needs a pass first quarterback than Notre Dame. Because I just say again, when I look at Will Howard's decision not to go to Notre Dame and easily choose Ohio State, I think that's as much as you need to know. Steve Angeli is a good story at Notre Dame. The kid can throw the football. Can he lead you further than Riley Leonard? I guess we're going to find out.
Yeah, I see, and that's the thing. Like I'm cool if you don't want to get in the portal for a quarterback and you're going to develop that guy. I'm cool with that, but it better work, right? You better have a guy in, like, this is what I say every year. In November, we shouldn't be asking questions about who's playing quarterback at Notre Dame or any program that has the want to get into the college football playoff.
How does any college football team dominate Notre Dame up front?
Yeah.
And it frankly, if you look at the play to Jeremiah Smith down the field in the fourth quarter, what did you see up front? You saw a dominant Ohio State offensive line, and Travion Henderson knew where the blitz was coming from, knew what his job was, and he did his job.
Yeah.
So you add a dominant offensive line with a dominant running back who did his job.
And you had a quarterback who knew where he wanted to go with the football. So
Yeah.
let me get this right. Your O-line did the job. Your back did the job. And the guy you took out of the portal did the job. And I also might add, before the ball was snapped, you had the cojones to call the play.
Yeah.
Because you saw, hey, they're in this type of scheme. The blitz is coming, but we're cool with that. And then you took the shot. And I just think that's my point. That's the difference between the haves and the have-nots. And let me go one step further. This is a Georgia problem too, right? This is not unique to Notre Dame. Like, Georgia is where Georgia is because they don't have a quarterback. And I like Gunnar Stockton a lot. I like what he brought to the table, but the idea that his first start in college football is in the college football playoff, that's a problem, right?
You also understand that this program doesn't have a top flight wide receiver. So you don't have a dominant quarterback. And probably our best quarterback is a cat named CJ Carr, who's coming off of, I think he had Tommy John surgery in September. Highly recruited kid out of Michigan. And I would also remind you, this team doesn't have a dominant wide receiver. So you watched Ohio State with one of the best, deepest rosters. Remember, your All-American center out for the year.
Mm-hmm.
You're moving guys from right side to left. Like, you have a patchwork offensive line that wasn't so patchwork. They dominated up front last night. And that's where Notre Dame has to get better because, again, I just point to Judkins, Howard, and Henderson making up the bulk of that 214 rushing yards. And everybody wants to wax on about Riley Leonard's ability to run the football. Will Howard carried the ball 16 times for 57 yards and outperformed Riley Leonard running the football.
I mean, look at. I agree with that. And look at the Judkins story, right? Where did Judkins come from?
Ole Miss.
Ole Miss.
Lane train.
Right? And what did everyone say? Oh, well, he's an Ole Miss running back. He's not. They got Travion. You know, like, no, dude. They went out and created an offense that's got like probably 4 layers to it. Yes, you've got Will, and he can run and he can do some things for you. But then you went and, you were able to get Jeremiah Smith to commit to your program and you developed him. Then you added the running game to that. And this is my point. Like when you asked me about Marcus Freeman deserves a lot of credit for getting this far with what he doesn't have.
Yeah.
You're talking about getting to the national championship game, playing essentially one side of the football at a really high level.
Totally agree.
He deserves a ton of credit for that. But now it's time to take that next step. Now it's time to move on from what I like to call the Cinderella story. Hey, the team that's got a cute little story quarterback that doesn't really have an offense and plays defense to try to win games. Yeah. Now we got to move on from that and actually build the program.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, let's get into the comments section because enough of us, more of you. I'm sure that you guys are I'm sure you guys are thrilled with everything I've just said.
This is going to be fun.
As always, the comment section on the Monty Show presented by Prize Picks. Now, I'd also like to say last night was a big night because I don't know if you guys noticed this or not. But Will Howard, he threw for more than a yard. I mean, and I'm just little old Marty over here.
Marty.
I won 5 times last night because I built a disgusting amount of Prize Picks on the half yard of Will Smith. I won $578 last night just in Prize Pick selections. It's that easy. If stupid old Monty doesn't know football can do it, so can you. Download the Prize Picks app, use a promo code Monty. The best part about Prize Picks in the NFL playoffs, it is so easy. It is so easy. You look at the playoffs, and let's see, what's the best pick in the playoffs? Oh, I know. It could be Jaden Daniels on a free pick for half a yard passing.
Do you think he's going to throw the ball? Like, do you think he's going to,
Jaden Daniels, half a yard passing. Saquonator, half a touchdown. Half a touchdown. Is Saquon Barkley any good?
Bro.
I think that there's so much money to be won on the Commanders and Jaden Daniels. All you got to do is download the app, create a new Prize Picks account using the promo code Monty. You deposit $5, so give you 50 more instantly. It's as easy money as there's ever been. You make a 3-pick flex play. And I know flex play in Arizona is not a thing. Sorry. But you make a 3-pick flex play. You take Jaden Daniels and 2 other picks and do it all week. Do it all week long. Jaden Daniels and 2 NBA guys. Jaden Daniels and your mom with the plumber who's coming over to replace the water heater, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, my point is Prize Picks, easy money, dude. Hook it up, download the app, use the promo code Monty. You deposit $5, they'll give you 50 more instantly.